Hey everyone, it's Heidi with Broadmeadow Farm, and today we're going to be planting this apple tree behind me. So one of the best times to be planting trees is in the mid to late summer into the fall. One of the nice things about doing this here at the tail end of August is I'm actually going to have about 4 to 6, even up to 8 weeks for this tree to root into the ground. Hopefully we're past the super hot days of the summer here, and then it will have chance to root right nicely into the ground. The tree I've purchased behind me here is a Goodland eating apple, and it'll be probably produce fruit in the next couple years. Probably though we won't get a ton for the next first or second years just because it is a bit of a younger tree.
Hey Mom, do you have to plant this tree with the pot or do you have to take it out of the pot?
So Carter actually asks a really good question. When you buy a tree in a pot that's made out of cardboard, there's 2 ways that you can plant. If you're at the beginning of the season, what you can actually do is cut the top part of the pot off and leave the bottom part to break down and decompose over the season. Today, we're going to actually cut off some of the pot because we are late in the season and I want to make sure that those roots have a good chance to get out of the pot into the soil. If you live in a much warmer climate or maybe one that has a lot more rain than we do, your chances of the pot breaking down are much higher. But where we are, it could take a year or 2 for that cardboard to fully break down, and I want those roots to have a good chance to get secured out into the surrounding soil. So we're going to take that pot off today. So here you can see the root ball is quite tight. So what I'm doing is taking my fingers and kind of scrubbing on the side of the root ball, making sure that all of those roots are loosened up. This makes sure that the roots aren't going to keep going round and round in a circle as the tree matures and grows. When I loosen up these roots, they just kind of get them separated out and available for them to root into the ground. Next up, you want to make sure you dig your hole so that the whole root ball fits right into the depth of the hole. If it's too shallow or too deep, adjust by tossing in or removing a little bit more soil. Take the side of your shovel and help figure out the depth of your tree. As you toss in the soil, make sure that you tamp it in with your fingers, trying to eliminate any air pockets that might be created as you're shoveling in the soil. As the hole gets filled in, you can even turn the shovel over upside down and use the handle to tamp it in a little bit harder. This will break up any sod clumps or dirt clumps and eliminate all of the air holes that are coming. Then, once you've got it all covered up, create a well with the surrounding soil. This will allow the water to be able to stay at the base of the tree when you water it in. Once you've got your tree planted, make sure you take these tags off, because what will happen is you're going to forget about this tag, and as the tree grows and the trunk gets wider and wider, this little tag is actually going to be kind of girdling or constricting the branches or the trunk that it's on. So make sure you always remove these as well. Now, one of the last things we need to make sure we do is to give this tree a good drink of water. While we did have a good inch of rain here in the last couple days, it never hurts to water in your tree. What that makes sure is that all of those air pockets that might be in there will kind of get filled in with the soil, giving the tree a really good chance at getting rooted in. Another question I always get asked is, how deep do you plant the tree? And that's really important that you don't plant your tree too deep, because a tree actually needs to be able to breathe and not suffocate. If you bury the tree too deep, what happens is the tree's just going to die because it's not getting enough oxygen or anything like that. The other thing is, if you plant it too shallow, what's going to happen is the roots are going to dry out, because that moisture from that root ball is going to draw everything from the ground all the way up through to the sky, and it'll wick it right out just as if you were drinking from a straw. So if you've often seen kind of this line on trees and you wondered, why is the main stalk straight and then it veers up? What happens is, this is the grafting line. So this root stalk is probably like a doggo crab apple, which is extremely hardy to our Alberta climates. And then what they've done is they've grafted on here the Goodland eating apple. So you've got kind of a nice fruiting apple that is grafted onto a nice hardy rootstock, so it's going to survive the winter. This line here definitely needs to stay above ground. This line here is where the soil level was when it was in the pot. So that's what you want to make sure you maintain. While I did put a little bit of topsoil on top to make sure that peat moss wasn't acting like a wick, I only put maybe this 1/4 inch of topsoil on top to make sure that the moisture is being locked in, but it's also not going to be too deep and cause any problems for the tree in the future. Another important aspect of the tree is to actually know how you want to keep the tree shaped. And when we get into late fall and as the leaves are starting to drop, I will do an update video on how I'm going to make sure that this tree is pruned and ready for the coming seasons. So make sure you follow along for that. So there you have it. That's how you plant a tree easily. 1, you want to make sure that hole is deep enough for your root ball to fit into it. 2, you want to make sure that you tamp out any air pockets you might have had in that soil ball as you were putting it in the ground. And 3, you want to make sure you water it in for the season. It's super easy, and don't be afraid. Now is an excellent time to be planting trees. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.